Uh, Many of you might have never heard of this library before, which I wrote, LimberGridView. So basically, what it is it's a resizable, movable grid layout uh, for the end user. So, and it is auto arranging. It uses computational geometry to do all its computation regarding arrangement or whatever, anything regarding arrangements. Yeah. So, how is it different from other existing libraries? So, what it does is it breaks the constraints on fixed layouts. So, the end user basically has the freedom to choose whatever size of items which he wants to see on the screen. So that's the main goal of this library, and it was built out of pure curiosity rather than just business needs. Yeah, and it has some constraints, like for example, uh, it has some minimum height or minimum width constraints, and one of the constraints is that the height can't be more than the viewport, and the width also can't be more than the viewport. Viewport in the sense like the parent element. So this talk will consist of demos. I'll do some coding to plug it in, and we'll have some Q&A. And yeah, so yeah, so it has an intelligent algorithm which selectively selects item to arrange for, by which what I mean is, let's say you have 100 elements, right? So you move an item from one place to another place. So to do any geometric calculation, it is very computationally intensive, right? So what it does is in a single pass, it will figure out which all items it needs to work on. So after figuring out, it probably selects like 10 or 15 items it has to work on, and it works on those items, calculates free spaces, and figure out where to put items. And it has been tested on like 1,000 to 2,000 elements. I mean items on screen. You can have 1,000 to 2,000 items, and the time complexity on your move operation or your resize operation won't differ because of the of the intelligent algorithm which I told you about, the selective process. Coming to its time complexity, the best case is 1 to 10 milliseconds, depending upon scenarios, and average case is 10 to 100 milliseconds, and worst case scenarios for items which are really far apart, it's 100 to 300 milliseconds, and I'm currently working on optimizing it as well. Basically, the optimization was done. It still needs to be done, but currently I'm focused on the UI and usability aspects currently. And for tablets, basically mobile devices, it's slightly slower. Yeah, and also when you re-render any, when you perform any operations, right? So it has to do some re-rendering, right, on the items. So when you resize, you have to resize the contents inside it, right? Or when you delete, you have to make some adjustments. Or when you move, you have to make some adjustments. So it re-renders only the items that are affected. So it minimizes re-rendering also. And yeah, so so You can store the output data, that is the data for the sizes of various items in local storage. Like you don't need to store it on database, right? And so let's say suppose the user logs out, right? So in that case, if you provide empty an array with empty objects, it will just render squares of equal sizes. So basically, you don't have to uh, store any of these user data on your database. And the output is by default scaled to 1920 pixel by 1080 pixel. So this is like, say for example, you have a 720p screen, you are using it on that, and when you get the output, it scales to the default value, that is 1920 by 1080. So coming down to features, right? Yeah, so as I said, it has movable and resizable grids. It has built-in intersection observer. So whenever you scroll, it doesn't render like, let's say the user has 100 items. It doesn't render all 100 items. It's kind of like a sliding window kind of thing. So only what the user is trying to see, it will render those items. It has built-in resize observer. So if the user resizes the window, it will scale automatically. It has built-in undo redo function. It has touch support for tablets of any size. So I get to this point. One interesting thing is, what I found is there are two types of touch screens. So mostly for small screen, if you touch hold on the screen, right, it will fixate to one particular point. But for other type of touchscreen devices which are larger in size, when you touch hold, it does not fixate to a particular point. It picks up minute variations. So it has support for that also. It supports mobile view. So when let's say the user resizes the window, it automatically goes into the mobile view. It has plugins for applications. It is built using vanilla JavaScript. So it has plugins. Basically, it's a callback function where you supply whatever needs to be rendered, and it's one of its main principles is to minimize computation. Yeah, coming to user interface, as I said, the user can define his or her layout. Their design is their size. There are no constraints apart from which I mentioned earlier. They can swap items. They can even push items when they try to resize or move. They can swap multiple items when they want to move. We have latching in corners and edges. I'll get to this when I'm doing the demo. You can delete empty space when you have a narrow strip of space which you want to get rid of. You can basically draw a rectangle to add items on screen. Users can try different things and they can get used to it, and they can have their own set of things, and it's fast and optimized. Yeah. Yeah, so for developers, most features are built in. It is plug and play. It has the developer basically doesn't need to write so much code to plug it in. Customizable CSS, you can customize the way it looks. You can import grid data, and this is basically written in vanilla JavaScript, so you can plug it in any framework you like. Yeah, so some problems which we have right now is floating point errors. So due to this problem, we can't go to a stable build right now. So based on interest from people, it can be accelerated to have a stable build in 6 months, but I'm going slow right now. So what undesired outcomes means is when you try to move certain items, or when you try to resize certain items, it moves certain items which is not supposed to move. Yeah, and empty space. So when you're scrolling and you have a huge empty space, the scrolling breaks. So this is a minor bug, and we have some scroll issues in iOS. This is also a minor bug. And sometimes when you move items from far away, there is a zombie item, which means it's rendered but you can't do anything with it. It's also a minor issue. The main issue is the floating point errors, which I'm currently working on. Yeah. So moving on to demo, resize. Sorry. Yeah. So you can resize your items like this anywhere on the screen. It will latch onto the edges or corners of any item. So I want to latch it in this corner. It will just latch it. Pushing. So let's say I made some mistake, and I just want this item which I resized, I just want to push it aside. I can do it. Let's say again I want to push it this side. Okay, yeah. I can push any items. Yeah. Move with latch. Yeah. So when I try to move any item, it will try to swap the first time. Oh, my fingers are shaking, sorry. So this is basically latching on to the bottom corner. So basically this helps in maintaining symmetry in your apps. So yeah, this is basically swapping items. So I want to latch it here on the edge. I can latch it at the edge, or on the corners, or on the edges. Pushing while resizing. So if I want to push these two items down, if I resize it, it will push these items down. Yeah, so I see it will even push these items down. Or oh, sorry, it was while move, right? Sorry. So I'll disable the latch feature, and I'm moving it down. So it will move the items down. Removing an item. So this when I click on the remove button over here, basically it's calling remove item function, and it will remove this particular item, and you can update your data based on the removal. Auto scroll. So one interesting thing is in some touchpad, right? When you tap hold any item in some touchpad, you can use your other finger to scroll, but in some cases, particularly in Windows laptops, this is not the case. It will simply trigger a mouse up event. So in this case, what it provides is you can basically move your mouse near the top of the screen, it will scroll. Bottom, it will scroll. So this is one of the feature. Yeah. Add by dragging. So basically I can choose this add by dragging feature. It's just setting a flag in the library. You just call a function for that, and I draw a rectangle, and the feature, I mean the item is registered and it's added. And this is plugged in. Basically, this is the developer's code. And when you click on add, you click on add item, you trigger your own code to render stuff. You basically trigger register some callbacks that will put the elements in inside the item. Delete free space. So what I'm going to do is I'll just remove some items. So yeah, cut space tool. Yeah, so when I choose this tool and draw a rectangle, basically it will just cut the free space. It shouldn't have any items in between. So let's say, for example, there was this item. Sorry. There was this item here, and I try to cut space. This will not work because there is already an item here. So in order for this to work, it has to have a clean area, and you can cut the free space and everything will move up. Yeah, intersection observer. So yeah, so I have a long list. So basically, as you can see, when I'm scrolling right, you can see that it's re-rendering everything, and you can basically figure out that at a particular point of time, only the item which is being viewed by the user is being rendered. Resize observer. Yeah. So yeah. So basically, when I resize it, the width was less, so it went to mobile view. If I resize it again, it's configured to a desktop layout for this width. So you can see your layout being rendered. Yeah, so that's that. Undo, redo. Yeah, so basically it has built-in undo redo feature, so that the developers don't need to program it. If I do any operation like moving or resizing, you have this undo redo feature, which is probably very handy. Change margin. Yeah, so the change margin, you can dynamically change margin, but this feature hasn't been released as a beta version. It's a work in progress. I'll show you. It couldn't be released for this demo because we had some issue with I had some issue with floating point numbers. So I click on this button. I can increase margin dynamically. And yeah, I can decrease it all the way down to 0. So this is my dev environment. Like it's not even released. It just has a branch on GitHub. Yeah, and this I think I forgot to plug it in. I think it's stuck. It's not a really high powered laptop, so Basically, the undo redo should work for change margin also. Yeah. So now I'll just do some light arrangement so you just get the gist of what it can do. Yeah. So yeah, so that's a small demo. So we'll move on to code right now. Um, so first of all, we have EL, which is basically the element. Oh yeah, first I will go through your Redux store. So this is view. This is basically to toggle between default and customized view. This is default view. By default, you don't have a resize tool on the left side. You can add a flag and you can get that. By default, you have this ear like thing by which you can resize. Basically, this is vanilla. I didn't do any CSS changes. And this is a customized view where I made several changes. Yeah, so this is for that. Latch is basically to latch or not to latch. So if I unselect this and if I go near any item, it won't latch. But if I check this, I try to latch, it will latch onto the edge and it will basically have symmetry between items. Dex interaction mode, it's basically this add item by dragging or cut space, this option. Position data is your array of coordinates, basically the top left corner and height and width, or it can be top left corner and the bottom right corner, array of those, any of those. And basically this is your Redux. So main thing is we have change view action, change latch action, change dex interaction mode action, and set position data. So we'll focus on those. Now moving on to how we can plug it in. I have a use effect, and on render I'll try to render my view on this element. So first I have I'm not good with naming functions, so you probably want to excuse me for that. So you have this function. So basically what it does is, so in your customized view, I was able to tap, hold on the top section where the heading is written, and I could engage the move operation. So for this, I have this function callback registered, and here I will am I running out of time? Like, it will take some time, so.
It's better to give a quick walkthrough.
Oh,
Give the code base to the code. People can go through.
oh, okay, sure. Yeah. Yeah. So we have various callbacks. So this here, basically, I'm checking whether the place where the user clicked, right, whether it has this particular classes or not. If it has, then you can trigger this the move operation. Render complete. So in render complete, basically I'm not doing anything with it because it's not a complex application, it's just a demo application. So it's a function where you can do some of your activities after the rendering is complete. Render content is a main thing. So here I'm passing a JSX component. So as I said, this is a vanilla JavaScript library, right? So it does not understand this thing. So for that, we have a render plugin and remove plugin. So here I have React DOM render. So the render data is basically whatever you passed here. Here you can pass a node or a string. It will render it. If you pass any other thing, it will pass it back to your render plugin, and you can have some framework like React and render your item, and remove plugin to remove unmount your element. This is basically when you want to remove any item. And on various operations like resize complete, move complete, add complete, you want to save your position data on your Redux store, because if you move out of your current page and come back in, you won't have your data. So if you save it, you'll have the data. Or for example, say the electricity event. So you have this callbacks, you can put it on your Redux store and your local storage, so that when user comes back, it will be as in the latest form. Yeah, other things, we have some constants. Yeah, so show bottom left resize guide. So basically, if this is true, you'll have the resize guide on your left bottom side. Yeah, so that is a quick walkthrough. And one more thing. I think I don't have time for this thing.
You can share the link.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so so this is you can access this library through my website, limber.in, limber.in. There you'll find links to the GitHub repo and the example code. You can install it through npm. It's the instructions are there in the GitHub repo. And yeah, for if you want to get it for your application, it's currently in beta version. So it will take some time. If you register, it will probably get fast tracked, and you might probably have a stable release in 6 months, probably. Yeah, so that is how you can get it. It's licensed under GNU GPL version 3. So if you uh, want to use it, you have to get a license from me. Yeah, so it's free software. You probably want to learn more about free software. It's open source, but it protects all the 4 freedoms that one should have in a software. Yeah, and yeah, that is it. Thanks.